Okay, today we're going to talk about getting started doing development on Dart. Dart is AP Trust's digital archivist's resource tool, primarily used for bagging and uploading files that need to go into remote repositories. Um, to get started, you're going to need a recent version of the Go programming language. Um, you're going to need Docker, and we'll get to why in a few minutes. And you're going to need to install Wales from wales.io, which provides the user interface for running Dart. Once you have a recent version of Go, and at this point we're using Go version 1.24.11, that's in April 2026. The version will probably go up after that. But once you have Go, Docker, and Wales installed, you can clone the Dart repo from GitHub, github.com/aptrust/Dart. You will also need to clone Dart Runner from github.com/aptrust/Dart-runner. Dart is actually a visual editor that makes it easy for a user to construct a JSON file that describes a job. Dart Runner takes that JSON file and actually executes the job. So it does the packaging, the validation, and the uploading based on this JSON file description that the user created with Dart. Now, if we look at the Dart code, this is Dart Runner. I want to go to Dart. This is the Go mod file, which lists Dart's dependencies. You can see here we're using Go 124.11, and we are using the current version of Dart Runner, which is 1.03 in April 2026. But when you develop, you're going to want to uncomment this line in the Go mod file to say replace that remote version of Dart Runner from GitHub with the local version that you just cloned. This points to a relative path to where the Dart Runner source repo is on your machine. You want to do this because if you're going to touch Dart Runner at all, and we'll get to reasons why you might want to do that later, if you're going to touch it, you want Dart to pick up those changes immediately from your local file system instead of having to go push a new release to GitHub and then tell Dart to go fetch that new release. You just want to work with your local files. So we're going to do this replace here in the Go mod file. Let's start Dart. Dart has two run modes for developers. One runs in the browser, and this one is very easy to start up and debug. The other mode runs in Wales, which is the way Dart is distributed after it's built. Wales is a standalone app with its own embedded browser, and that's how end users run the app. And we're going to look at both ways of running Dart during development. Typically, what you want during development is just to run it in the browser. And in the scripts directory of Dart, there's a script called run.sh, which can take any of three parameters: tests, services, or Dart. We'll review these three options in a moment. But for now, we're going to run scripts, run Dart. And it launches a browser window pointing to localhost 8444. And we can run jobs from here. So let's create a new job and let's say I want to package up a few scripts and maybe some test data from, what project is that? Dart Runner. I'm going to package these up. I'm going to tell it to use Baggett format in the APTrust Baggett profile. And I'll call this demo files. And it's going to create a tard directory, or sorry, a tard file in this directory. Click next. Give it a description and a name. And APTrust requires this source organization. Okay. So it's going to bag with that metadata. I'm going to tell this to upload the bag to my local MinIO server and my local SFTP server. And by the way, when I ran that command to run Dart, prints all this output to the terminal, what it says here, it started a MinIO container and it tells you where it is and what the login is. It's running on localhost with user and password MinIO admin. Actually, it's going to be here. This is the easiest way to get to the console. Localhost 9001. If I go there, this is MinIO, which is an S3 service. Type in MinIO admin, and that is the username and the password. And here. There's already a file in there from a previous upload. But I'm going to go back to Dart. I'm going to say upload this bag we're building to the local MinIO service and to the local SFTP service. Again, looking at the terminal output for run.sh, it started that MinIO container and it created a set of buckets that we use for testing. Also started an SFTP server, which you can log into through the terminal using that with the password. If I look at Docker, I can see Dart MinIO and Dart SFTP are both running. So go back to Dart, say next. Now in this job, it's going to bag up 8 directories with 59 files, a little under a megabyte of data. And it's going to upload them to local MinIO, local SFTP. If I run that, bag is created, it's valid, the upload succeeded. It actually shows you here where it put the bag demo files.tar, which I don't, oh, here it is, demo files.tar. And if I go over here and look at the MinIO console and refresh that bucket, there is the bag we just uploaded. You can log into the SFTP server through your terminal and see that the bag is in there as well. While I have Dart running, I'm going to show you one other thing. If you go to help about, it shows you where the log file is, and it shows you this data location. If I click on that folder, you'll see in here dart.db. This is a SQLite database. It's where Dart stores all those JSON descriptions of jobs that you are creating with Dart. And if I go and list the jobs, this is demo files, the job we just ran. And I can look at the job result, which this job had 3 basic steps: packaging, is the package result. Validation, it actually validated the bag it just built before uploading it. And then upload results. There was one going to local min.io and one going to the local SFTP server. All this is stored in that SQLite database. It also shows us what was in the bag info for that bag, the AP Trust info, Bagit, and the manifests and tag manifests. So let's go back here. I'm going to actually go to Dart. This again is the Dart source code. The application actually runs as a web server. It uses the Golang Gin web framework. Let's see where it is in GoMod here. Gin version 1.10. There may be a newer version out now. But it uses that server framework, and this file inside server.go lists all of the HTTP routes and the controller functions that they map to. So if I want to look at app setting index, go to definition, get app settings, runs this short function. Most of these functions are very short and easy to understand. If I go back to Dart, I click on application settings, this is what it shows me. Most apps only have these two settings by default. Bagging directory is where it creates the bags, and control characters and file names describes how you want Dart to handle control characters and file names. Some repositories will not accept them, so you may want it to fail validation, or you may want it to just warn you. Anyway, back to code. Yes, the server file maps paths to controllers, and most of these controllers, you will see, most of the handler methods begin with this line request equals new request, and it passes in the Gin context. New request here does a lot of parsing and background work. It figures out whether the user wants to retrieve one item or a list of items. It will load those items for you, load objects. It's just a shortcut that handles a lot of the boilerplate for basic methods. So if you're wondering what new request is, that's what it is, shortcut. New request also constructs a pager so that when you see, if this list had like 100 items in it, the pager at the bottom just automatically sets up like 20 items per page and back and forward buttons and whatnot. All of that stuff is built in, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you're working on that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Dart allows the user to construct a fairly complex JSON file, which is then handed off to Dart Runner. Dart includes an embedded version of Dart Runner, but Dart Runner also happens to work as a standalone app. And in this documentation for Dart at aptrust.github.io/dart-docs, you have documentation for the standalone version of Dart Runner, which is a command line app, and that makes it easy to use in Bash and Python scripts. It also allows the application to run on servers that don't even have a graphical user interface. So there are cases where people create jobs or whole workflows in Dart and then ship that JSON off to a server to run the jobs, which could run for days if they're big jobs. But Dart, the graphical interface, contains an embedded version of Dart Runner, and it hands off JSON files describing jobs to that embedded Dart Runner, and Dart Runner executes those jobs. Typically, a job will consist of a package operation, which is usually putting files into Baggett format. It will usually have a Baggett profile describing exactly how those files need to be bagged and what metadata should be included. It includes a validation operation to validate the bag that it just created before it ships it off in these upload operations. In the sample job we did, we created a single bag. It was built and validated, and then there were two upload operations, one to the local MinIO server and one to the local SFTP server. If you're adding new features to Dart, typically what you're going to do is create a user interface in the Dart graphical application that walks the user through the process of describing what they want to do in that new feature. And then it constructs JSON, which it saves in its SQLite database. But then to actually implement that new feature, you will need to work in the Dart Runner repo and add code here. Most of the essential code for Dart Runner is in core, and that includes code for bagging, for validation. There's an S3 client for uploading and downloading items. There's an SFTP client. Almost everything is in this core folder of Dart Runner. So let me, when you are developing in Dart, there is a document here in the Dart repo called Developing Dart. In this section, debugging, you'll see some instructions and some JSON to add configuration to your local Dart version to be able to upload files to the S3 and SFTP services that again are running here in Docker. This is something you'll almost certainly want to do. If you go to Dart, go to settings, import settings, import from JSON, and then copy this whole blob, paste it in here, and click import, you will wind up with, these settings for the local MinIO service, local SFTP service, so you can do local uploads during your testing. Dart also now includes some other jobs to simply validate a bag without doing anything else to it. You can use that for bags created outside of Dart. It has upload only jobs, so you can drag a file from here to there and tell it to upload that to local MinIO, and it will run that. And if I refresh this, there's that new file. And it includes the ability to download items from S3 as well. So I I clicked on that and it just downloaded it. Now, again, running Dart in your browser is typically what you will do for development. And again, that is just a question of running this command, scripts run.sh Dart. I'm going to show you a couple of other things. That run command, if you tell it to run tests, it'll actually start the MinIO and SFTP containers, and it will run tests against those as well. And you'll see that in this test suite, virtually all the tests are in controllers. That's where pretty much everything is implemented. Dart Runner has its own separate test suite. We'll get to that in a few minutes. That test script, or sorry, the run script also can do this. If you tell it just to run services, let's look at Docker. Nothing is running in Docker right now. But if we tell the run script just to run services, it's going to start MinIO, create the default buckets, and it's going to start SFTP. And when we look at Docker, there they are, up and running. The reason you might want to do this is if you're debugging. Let's look at Dart here. Here's a simple controller. If I want to debug Dart, I run that script, run.sh with services. It starts the services up. I go over here to debug and choose launch package. Click the debug button and you'll see over here, it actually gives us a brand new Dart window because it just started a new Dart instance. But over here you can see that it's running in debug mode. And you can put breakpoints wherever you want. Let's put one here, app setting index. And if I go here and click application settings, it hits my breakpoint and I can start doing debugging here. That is for local dev mode with Dart running in the browser. Dart has a second mode, which is to run it in Whales. And Whales mode actually compiles Dart into a binary that runs in the Whales application window. If I run Whales dev, this takes a little bit longer to start up, but you'll see it produces the standalone window that end users see when they run the app. So this is not a browser. This is Whales running as users see it. There are times when if anyone reports an issue in Whales that you cannot reproduce in the browser, you're going to want to run Whales dev, and then to debug it, you again go back to your debug in Visual Studio, say attach to process, launch this, and it's going to ask you over here what process you want. Type in Dart, click on that, and this will take a minute, but over here, you see the debugger is now running, and it has this little disconnect thing to stop the debugger. But again, you can set breakpoints, and if you are running here in Whales mode in that standalone window, you've attached to the process and now you're debugging that. So that is how you debug the standalone Whales app. I'm going to disconnect from that. The Whales app is still running. The debugger is just no longer attached to it. The only thing that differs between the Whales app and the browser version which developers see but users don't. The only thing that differs is file downloads. And if you look at this download job inside the download job controller, download job download, it checks first if is running in Wales. Then it has one process for downloading a file. Else, we're running in the browser, and there's a simpler process for downloading a file. That is the only functional difference in the code between running in the browser and running in the Wales window. In Dart, we actually map help files to each different window. Here we go, help map. So every handler function maps to a relative URL in the online Dart documents. So if I am in application settings and I click documentation here, it's going to take me to app settings in the online Dart docs. If you add a new feature and you're going to write a help document for it, you should include an entry in this help map so that your new feature is mapped to the right help page. If you cannot do that, at least contact AP Trust, and in your pull request, include some documentation that we can add to this. The Dart documents are another repo in GitHub, github.com/aptrust/dart-docs. It uses Python and make docs to generate the documents that are then served as GitHub pages. I mentioned earlier that Dart Runner has its own test suite. This is the more thorough piece of work that requires more in-depth testing, because again, Dart Runner actually executes the jobs, whereas Dart GUI merely produces descriptions of them. So I'm going to shut this down for now, and I'm going to make sure, okay, that stopped. I'm going to change to Dart Runner directory. In here, there's also run.h. Again, we're in Dart Runner now, which has run.sh, just like Dart does. If I run it with no arguments, it tells me there are two options. I can run the tests or the services. Running the services will actually run the same services that Dart runs. It'll run a Docker container with an SFTP service and MinIO S3 service. I want to make sure those are off. For now they are. If you change code in Dart Runner, we ask that you write unit tests, or if possible, integration tests for those. And if I say, again, we're in Dart Runner here, run.sh tests, this also starts a MinIO and SFTP container, creates the default buckets, and then it will run the tests. These take a little bit longer because they're a little more detailed. But those are the basics for getting up and running as a Dart developer. If you have questions or you run into issues, please don't hesitate to contact us at help@aptrust.org, and we will do our best to help you out. Thank you, and good luck coding Dart.